Melissa's going to call Duncan and see if he can give us some assistance. In the meantime, we're going to just make do, and we apologize for the poor audio, but we have a bunch of stuff that we want to get through tonight, and I think we can hopefully get a better audio and video worked out in not too long. So we're going to go ahead and start the meeting, and we'll do our best. So thanks for everyone's patience ahead of time.
Okay, and we are recording.
Okay.
So I'm inclined to stop the counter and start again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Daniel, can you hear me?
Yeah, hold on one second, Bob. Great, thank you. Sorry, Melissa was just calling Duncan, and I wanted her to be able to finish leaving a message with him. Yeah, Bob, I can hear you.
I have to go deliver a car to Richmond, so I can't stay. I have an open meeting law issue that I posted in chat. If an agenda has a timeline in it, can the timeline be advanced? My experience at UVM says no. So you may want to discuss it or further or follow that up.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bob.
I'll be back later, I hope.
We hope so too. Okay, so let's go over minutes from the last meeting, which was April 5th. Any additions, edits, changes to those minutes from early April? Nope. Okay, can I get a motion to approve April 5th minutes?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposing? No. Okay, great. Any additions or changes to the agenda? Great. And is there any member of the public who has any comments prior to starting our meeting?
We can identify Kelly.
We've done that. We did that at the beginning. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we're good. Great. So our first topic is subcommittee rules and regulations. So this is information that Melissa has kindly been digging into and has some sharing out to do. And our objective here, I think, is we will have more questions about how we move forward with this, and we can bring those to the relevant authorities.
Okay. So for people on Zoom to hear me, am I going to?
Yeah, we'll just move it over. Sorry, y'all. Online, we're moving the computer to get close to Melissa.
Okay, can you all hear me online? Okay. Anyone? Cecilia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Okay. Great. So I'm going to try and be really brief. I recently attended the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns open meeting law training, which was a big training, about an hour and a half of time. So what I've done for this evening is to pick out a few areas I thought I would highlight for our committee, and also wanted to recommend that at least one of our co-chairs join the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns. There's a great wealth of information on this topic under their Municipal Assistance Center. That's the training arm of Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns. And you can also access a quick guide there, a facts page, a toolkit all around open meeting law. And you also can have access as a member to lawyers who will answer your question the same day you ask it. Wonderful resource. So here goes. I'm just going to peel through about 5 minutes or less of things, and then we can see where we might need to make changes to comply with open meeting law. So I just wanted to highlight to start off with that all meetings of a public body must be open to the public. That is the law, and that courts will err on the side of the public in case of a complaint. So it is on us to make sure to the best of our ability that we are following the open meeting law and to understand it as best we can. Electronic discussions, that seems to be one that comes up for us. So the best practice is to avoid any electronic discussions as a committee or a subcommittee, except for these three things: scheduling a meeting time, organizing an agenda, and distributing info for a future meeting that is one-way communication, no discussion. I'm going to move on. There's a bill moving through the legislature right now, S55, that is going to update open meeting law regarding what is required for remote and hybrid meetings. So changes will be coming in July, so we need to check back in with that to make sure that we understand what the new law is. Meeting minutes do not need to be a transcript of a meeting, just need to list the members present, public present, active participants, motions, proposals, resolutions, votes, and a record of individual votes if, as we have right now, one of our members is on Zoom. A roll call vote must be taken and identified in the minutes as to each person's vote. Here's one that we might not have always followed. The meeting minutes need to be posted within 5 days of the meeting. Executive sessions, I'm not going to dig in deep on there, but I think that as co-chairs, before you think you might call an executive session at any point, it would be worth it to revisit the facts page of the VLCT Municipal Assistance Center. There was quite a lot covered there that I think we would want to know before we called an executive session. Okay, now we're going to get into it. Quorum. The quorum is based on the actual seats of a committee, not how many positions are filled. It's based on the actual seats that are given that committee. So if we have open seats, it doesn't change our quorum. A subcommittee is also based on the actual seats of that subcommittee. So if we have a subcommittee of 3 people, a quorum of that subcommittee is 2 people. If we have a subcommittee of 5 people, the quorum for that subcommittee is 3 people. A quorum is not like a quorum has the same rules for a committee or a subcommittee. Open meeting law applies to subcommittees, even if their business is limited in scope and time. And this is where I'm going to give you a handout on this one here. This is a screenshot from a slide of the presentation. You can just pass those around and I'll keep one. And there might be enough for you guys to have one too, to take a look at. Does not matter if the number of members of your subcommittee are less than a quorum of your full committee. Does everybody, that I think is the crux of what I want to cover here tonight. Do you all understand that? Okay. Okay. So
I get everything you said until that.
Okay. So a quorum of your subcommittee is based on the number of members in your subcommittee, not your full committee.
Yeah,
so we've been sidestepping inadvertently open meeting law by thinking that, oh, if our subcommittees are below a quorum of our full committees, they do not need to follow open meeting law. That is incorrect. A subcommittee has to follow open meeting law, and all that is entailed in open meeting law. There are no exceptions. Well, you don't have to do this if you're just a subcommittee. Subcommittees must follow open meeting. Does that make sense? Okay.
So the subcommittee needs a quorum of the whole committee?
Nope, a subcommittee just needs a quorum of its body to meet. So if you're on a subcommittee of 3, to have it means 2, but it also means that your subcommittee has to follow open meeting law. So you have to post your agenda ahead of time and have your meeting open to the public. Everything that a committee has to do, a subcommittee also needs to follow.
Melissa, a quick question around that. Sometimes there are named subcommittees and sometimes ad hoc subcommittees. I'm assuming that applies to both of them. But what if you just have a little task working group? You just task 3 of your members to draft something up before the next meeting. It's not an official subcommittee. How does that fit in?
It fits in under open meeting law. The law is designed to err on the side of the public that they have access to all of the proceedings of a committee. So you're entering a gray area there. And what they recommended in this training is that you follow open meeting law.
So
if you-
even if they're just a task group to like edit some document or produce a first draft, and it's just a couple of people, 3 people maybe,
Okay,
and they're not an official subcommittee, then you should assume they are a subcommittee.
that's right. Open meeting law applies to subcommittees, even if their business is limited in scope and time.
Except there's a difference between a named subcommittee and somebody asked to do something before the next meeting.
I
I mean,
agree.
at least there is at UVM, so I'm going back to like the faculty senate things, and there's like official
So this
committees
is-
and ad hoc committees, and then there's groups
Okay,
of people
let me
that
just
just
stop
do
you
something.
right there for a second, Cecilia. If
Mhm.
that case comes up and you really want to circumvent open meeting law because you have a specific task and you're just going to have a couple of people that you think want to work on it, then I would check in with the lawyers at the Municipal Assistance Center before you proceed to make sure you are not breaking open meeting law.
Okay,
So
so what I'm
just-
saying is, I don't know that it could be following open meeting law if it's not an official named subcommittee, is the question I'm asking. It's not seeking ways to subvert it. It's just to figure out what the boundaries and what they're calling a subcommittee, or is that, because I thought any group smaller than the full amount could talk about a topic. You're not smaller than, but you know that
no,
what it is. Could at least
No.
talk outside of meetings.
no. So you can come up to a member of the committee of this Andrews Community Forest Committee and have a conversation, certainly outside of a meeting. You can do that. You and Brad and Ian could even get together and have a chat informally. But if it's a task of or business of the committee and you're appointing a subcommittee to do work that's going to be brought back to this committee, then that is a subcommittee and it's under open. So I don't want to pose a whole bunch of what ifs. I think if you think you're going, you should always assume that if you're have a task of the committee, if you're tasked with business of the committee, that you should assume that open meeting law applies to you. If you have a question and you think it really doesn't, then I would just contact the Municipal Assistance Center to make sure that what you're about to do is in compliance with the law. If you think that you're in a gray area and you don't need to follow open meeting.
So can I?
Okay,
pause?
thank you.
Elizabeth, thank you so much
Yeah.
for doing this work. This is a deep dive.
Right, and I just have one quick thing here. The last thing I'm just going to close with is the complaints from the public on open meeting law must be addressed by our committee if a complaint is brought to us and someone feels that we're not following open meeting law. The Municipal Assistance Center asks and requests that we contact them for guidance as well as our town attorney.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna have a lot of questions, and Cecilia has already brought up some really good questions. I have been in this exact same situation with both Josh and the entire select board, in which I asked this question about open meeting laws, and I said, well, what's the difference between the subcommittee and a working group? And from both all of the select board and Josh in the room could not give me a clear answer. They said, we don't know. So I think, Cecilia, what you're asking, I think a lot of the answers we're gonna get is, I don't know. And I think that we're probably gonna have to figure this out along with our current.
I asked about our subcommittees. I asked in the back and forth, you won't see it on the recording, but we had a question and answer session after the presentation. And I said, here's the situation with our community forest committee. We have these subcommittees. Here are topics and the work that they are tasked with. Does open meeting law apply to these subcommittees? The answer was definitely yes. It wasn't, I don't know.
Okay.
So I don't know how to be more clear on that. If you really think it doesn't, the answer that I heard was, please check with us.
Well, that's
So,
really
yeah.
specific.
Yeah. Yeah,
I assume
yeah. I mean, I'm not taking a side of whether that's good or bad. I'm just reporting what the lawyers say the law is. So,
Hands up and people can't hear you.
okay.
sorry. Okay, I'm done.
No, that's good.
I think so. A couple of the follow-up questions would be, or the main follow-up question I have is one to Josh and our select board is how are committees such as ours expected to get work done if we have to follow open meeting laws for every subcommittee? Because that is a huge lift to put together an agenda, make it public. We would have to be here. You couldn't just meet at someone's house because you'd have to set up this whole thing, make it public, write up minutes. It basically quadruples, probably even more, the time involved in doing any task. So then do we become a committee in which individuals are just doing work on their own and then bringing it back to the group, but we can't work together? So I think that's our big question is how do we, and I don't know if anyone else on any other committees has been through this, but like on RCC, the subcommittees I've been on, we never abided by open meeting laws. We just went and did our tasks, and we met many, many times, and it would have been impossible to do the things we did if we had to abide by open meeting laws.
But come back to the whole meeting, the precedent here would be a subcommittee writes a report, draft report, comes to this open meeting here, such as this one right now, presents a draft report and public members of the committee can comment. That's what we've been doing.
Yeah, but that doesn't follow open meeting laws.
Right, so I think if you think about what does open meeting law say and what is the purpose of it? If we have a subcommittee that's writing let's say it's a policy about dogs, that's something very concrete. And our subcommittee writes a policy about dogs, and we say, we think the policy should be that no dogs are allowed in Andrews community areas. We've written a policy, and we're gonna bring it back to the full committee for a vote. So we excluded the public from our deliberations and policy writing on dogs by having a closed subcommittee meeting. So I'm not saying I'm in for or against this. I hear what you're saying. It's a lot of work. I'm just trying to understand why the open meeting law applies. And so in my mind, it's because we've excluded the public from the discussion and the writing of the proposed.
Melissa, sorry, can you pass the mic around to whoever's talking? Because we can't hear anything.
Sorry, Dan, I just sent this in the text. We actually can't because the computer has to be plugged into it has 4 different things plugged in, so it only moves so far.
I see.
I apologize to everyone who's trying to hear, and we haven't heard back from Duncan.
Move a seat here and ask members of the committee to come and sit in that seat.
He hasn't called me back.
They're close to the mic. I think it's easier than moving the laptop to the person who's speaking.
So, without spending more time on it, I think as far as subcommittees go, that it would behoove both of you to become members of the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns, pose your question to the MAC lawyers, and really understand what is required of us. I hear you that it's going to be a big lift, and so I think the answer is we're supposed to do it, but I think that would be very helpful because if they're hearing from the select board, I don't know. The MAC lawyers are the experts on this. So, and I asked a question, I got an answer back in the same day. They have an ask the lawyer.
I have another component to this action plan, which is that Daniel and I, or one of the other of us, should meet with the town administrator to say, excuse me, to say if if we're gonna comply with open meeting laws, then we have to do the following things. How can the town center or the town administration accommodate that? We need a mechanism for having a meeting room with a Zoom and chairs for the public and everything else. So, just to accommodate this requirement needs the cooperation of town.
That's correct. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, great. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna follow up with Josh. And then Melissa, I might come back to you. And if it's okay, if there's other associated tasks of digging deeper, I can maybe fill you in on next steps and we can work on that. But I think it would be worth, going back to Josh and saying like, because it would be good to know what are other committees doing. And this might be a much bigger thing that the town is just beginning to learn about, or there may be some established norms that we don't know about, but other people are doing. And I think that's a good step to figure out. In the meantime, I don't know what we do with our subcommittees because we have a meeting next week already with some folks to work on some of this stuff. And maybe what I'll do is I'll email Josh tomorrow and maybe I can get some clarity before we meet next week. And I'll just let everyone know.
On a 2-day warning.
The learning period is calendar days, so that.
Yeah.
That would help. 5 days.
Yeah.
But no, that's.
Okay. Well, thanks, Melissa. I appreciate that. That's hard.
There's a lot that training. I mean, there's a lot. I was surprised.
And kind of insane that we get 0 onboarding as committees in terms of open meeting laws. Like it just seems like a big oversight on the town that they don't provide, some type of training or, there's like a packet that goes out that's like, hey, read this, but it's, this is obviously much more complicated.
The DLCT is, I don't know, I got the impression it's very close. You gotta pay to become a member. And the town will back you up.
Mhm.
It's only $10.
Yeah, but the town will. You can have the invoice sent to the town. I found the website I could work with, and then all this stuff is behind the paywall, all of this information, including the recording. There is a recording of this.
Yeah, you can watch this
But you gotta-
presentation.
Yeah.
No shirt.
Okay, so we're gonna move on. I'm gonna actually mess around with this audio for a second. But the next agenda item is subcommittee and work groups updates to share out. So we have the wildlife stewardship group and maybe we could start with those folks.
Yeah, wildlife has put 2 documents into the packet. And Brad, I think so people can hear you, could you move to this seat? Yeah. So microphone works for you.
Can you do a screen share of those documents?
I can set that up,
I would suggest a comparison one maybe. All right, just as background, few months ago, we started a couple of us, Sam, there's Sam Pratt, volunteer from the public being one of them. We're looking at the ACFC website, and I've always had a hard time navigating through that website, or I should say webpage on the town site. The information just seemed to be scattered. It just wasn't organized that well. There'd be similar topics, some 2 or 3 screens apart. So I took a crack at reorganizing the thing, and in a second, we can look at the current organization, and I just made a Word document with the current organization in one column and a proposed reorganization in another column. The idea was I tried to make it more welcoming to the general public instead of being so much about the committee itself, have just more about the forest itself. So that's a stewardship. What are we talking?
You want the other document?
Yeah, were we going to talk the webpage or?
Oh. Let me
We-
start over.
Well, we could do
Sorry
that.
about that.
You want to do
No,
that?
we're
All right.
halfway.
Okay. I mean,
That one's straightforward enough.
Yeah, we
I
can,
feel
we
like-
can just switch the agenda items, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Oh, is the stewardship plan on there too?
Yeah, it was, the
Yeah.
stewardship plan was supposed to come first, but that's fine. We can
it
do the
was,
website.
maybe I misheard.
That's okay, we can do the website first.
Okay, well, throw one of them up and we'll
Yeah,
talk about
That's
it.
okay.
All right.
Oh, I already got some.
Well, we're trying to do like 10 things with playing
Minimal,
musical chair.
minimal stuff. All right. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, we'll keep with that. So the current page is on the left, proposed is on the right. The way now it starts out, we explain when the meetings days, the whole application procedure, vacancies. Then it goes into the updating process that we've been involved in. Jumps to Velco, then it goes into who are the members, when are the meeting, it's just a scattershot approach. So jump over to the other, and I would suggest that, we end up with, where we begin, with a welcome, please visit the forest. Maybe a few basic guidelines, but at least a link to the guidelines. That's what the italics mean. Have a recreational map for people right up in front. Then we can start talking about what's in the forest, the flora and fauna. We can have links to the different assessments that we've had, links to the maps. Then we can talk about ourselves, the management committee, have an overview of who we are, what we do, can have social media, links to any social media sites we have, although I guess I saw something, maybe we're not supposed to have those, but links to the bylaws and how to contact us. The current list, upcoming meetings is great. I think I like the members' names and terms is good. And then we can tuck our recruitment message in there. Then we can talk about the management plan, have the overview of the current, whatever the current is at the time, with a link again, and then links to supporting documents, the policies, the things that it was derived from. Then currently, hopefully, we'll get rid of this soon, but something about this process of how we're updating it. And then, as is now on the other one, I think, links to a track changes version of this, what we're calling MP2, the updated, revised, the current draft, and a clean version of that. The indigenous acknowledgement can be in there. Then follow it up with a forestry management plan that Ethan produced. That's pretty clean. I think there's some maps too with that. I should have stuck those in, but that would be there. And then ongoing management activities. One, can you scroll up? I think I missed one item up at the top. Oh yeah, right above flora and fauna, news. If there are little items that we can put in there, what's going on. There's going to be a cleanup day up there. We're going to go, look for salamanders at the vernal pool, whatever. Just announcements of what's going on. And that would probably take a little bit of time of somebody to kind of keep that current. take stuff off, after things have gone by. But generally, that's the idea, is to do something like that. And then we actually tried to mock up something, that a visual. Is that in the packet or what? It was. Okay.
Brad,
That's great.
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Oh, no,
Makes sense.
no problem. Yeah, to me, it's just doing our work. I found it hard to go to that page and find what I wanted. I say, I knew I saw that. Where is it? And it would, it was all but invisible.
Is there can we make suggestions?
Yeah.
Just one quick thing, or two quick things. I wonder if we could have like news and events as the heading, and that way,
Yeah.
if there's things that we're doing, that would be an easy place for people to know. And then I would recommend we put ACF under the forestry, in front of the forestry management plan, just so people know it's specific to
The
the
forest.
town forest, and they're not like thinking, oh, is this like a general forestry management plan or
Sure.
something? But I think this is awesome.
Cool. Well, what I could do next is sit with Duncan and see how feasible it is.
Yeah.
I ran a couple months ago, I just ran the concept by him. Can we reshuffle stuff? Can we have links in there? Maybe even a photo.
Yeah.
I think a nice photo of the forest up top would be cool.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, probably, let's sit down and we'll do it. So we have pictures of ourselves.
Yeah.
One more suggestion.
Yeah. I gotta write these down. Go ahead.
It'd be worth putting an easy to spot link to the townwide, which we're revamping the townwide trail conditions page. That we're really doing work to train people to look there on whether trees are open or closed.
Yep.
And that'll be seasonal and like temporal.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
What are you calling it? A townwide trail condition?
And we're gonna put it into a new format. It currently is a spreadsheet, which is not well advertised, but it is maintained.
It's there, yeah.
But
Okay.
a lot of people don't know it exists. Yeah, the old schoolers and trails love it because it's easy, it's a spreadsheet, their data.
That's their comfort.
For people that Google search. We want to make it super easy.
Yeah, that's great. News and events. Okay, cool.
So I'm wondering, I don't know if anyone else knows, is this something we would need to vote on with a motion? Or not? I don't know.
I have a suggestion, which I think actually brought up, which is to go to Duncan or manager's websites. Create a mock-up online.
Yeah.
So we can-
Oh,
And then vote on that.
okay, sure, that sounds great.
Yeah.
So right now we're christening you with the power to
Okay,
move ahead
okay,
and
cool. Great.
we're also christening with our utmost gratitude because this will be awesome to see.
I think. Well, we'll see.
Technically christening, okay. So christened.
All right. Cool.
Great. And now we can flip back to wildlife stewardship plan. Which I think is also Brad.
Right. So quick history on that. This has been underway for about 3 months. Chase and Sam Pratt and myself been working on this. A little informal help from John Cart was very helpful at the outset. We started thinking, how can you make a wildlife management plan with monitoring practical, seeing there's probably several thousand species up there we could count, which of course we can't do. We thought, well, what if we selected some kind of capstone species, umbrella species, those that if they're in the forest, that means it's healthy. The experts, John and his colleague Andrea there in 1A, they weren't wild about that. They said, well, it's just hard to manage for specific species. And in fact, the town, or excuse me, the state has moved away from that. The idea is to create the environment where these species can flourish. And they'll take care, they'll show up, but their focus is more on the natural communities, the habitats, the forest blocks, the stuff on the landscape, not so much the particular animals. And I'm sure there are a few exceptions. You know, there's definitely they're focused on deer because that's a challenge in a couple of ways, down to the insect level, you know, with invasives and stuff. But for the most part, for fostering healthy forests, healthy wildlife populations, they go towards the quality of the forest.
It's too small of a sample size to really draw
Yeah.
conclusions. If you're looking out for one species happening to walk in front of a trail cam or something, you know, in one area, it can't be an accurate picture.
Right.
It needs to be a really broad thing to do it on by species. So habitats are better.
Yep.
Okay.
So what we're looking at doing now is to, in number 2 there, you know, identify the key attributes these various natural communities provide to wildlife. Why are they important to wildlife? And then develop a plan that focuses on maintaining it and enhancing those habitats. And the detailed stuff is there. B, make it practical, you know, geared to what we can do. And not a pie in the sky kind of thing. Integrate it with the rest of the plan, with the forestry, recreational, educational aspects. Use what is now a pretty good wealth of ecological assessments to inform us on that. And then look for ways that we can get the community and not just ourselves engaged in the stewardship of this.
Question?
Yeah.
This makes a lot of sense. Sounds like it has some implications for an eventual monitoring plan.
Of some sort. Well, yeah. I think we can look at what at least Meredith Naughton has recommended and see how that would interface with this approach.
Am I carrying the monitoring to focus on habitat more?
I think, yeah. If that, I mean, off the top of my head, I'm not sure how you do that, but I'm not an expert, you know, but, you know, maintaining those healthy areas.
Just as a example, this past weekend was Spectacular Nature Day in Burlington, and this week is the Bio Blitz.
Oh,
So there's tons and tons of people out in Burlington right now using iNaturalist to document all the spring ephemerals, insects, amphibians, everything they find. And they document that on the citizen science app called iNaturalist.
yeah.
And it's a really powerful tool because it gives you good baseline data without having to spend $10,000 on an ecological consultant going out there 10 times during the year and doing their own assessment, which is kind of just doing the same thing. So we can look at outsourcing that too in similar ways of like, how do we get the community involved and start to gather data through apps like iNaturalist and then integrate that into a larger data set.
Yeah, and that would play right into E, you know, involving the community.
Yeah.
In it, you know, and I think that helps bring it alive because some of this may be fairly dull. You know, well, you know, how's the oak population doing up there? You know, it's not necessarily juicy subjects for everybody, but if you're out there and you're seeing stuff in the oak forest, they're even documenting, you know, the oak growth. You got something going. Another idea we're kicking around is we were talking to Andrea. We had actually meeting with Andrea Shortsleeve, who's a community wildlife biologist for the state. And really good chat with her. We talked about this concept of exclosures. I've seen one of those. It's really cool. You take say a 10 by 10 feet area or 20 by 20 maybe, in a forest, you put up a chain link fence around that, like 12 feet high, so deer can't jump over it. And over time, all these plants start growing inside there, and you can contrast that with the outside, where the deer have been browsing, you know, kind of keeping the forest beat down because there's maybe too many deer. And it's just like a public demonstration project of the impact that deer can have on a property if you're not also managing for deer. And we talked about ways to do that. And she was saying, try to encourage hunting, try to encourage maybe even archery, bow hunting season, which, you know, isn't being played up that much. Pardon me?
Because you can hunt those.
You can during those, yeah,
Controls population.
right. Antlerless deer. It's the euphemism. It's not Bambi's mother.
This document at present aims to develop a wildlife stewardship plan with various components and to review it periodically. I think the word that's come up is missing from that before. So that should be the same as the next step is
Yeah.
Identifies what.
Is there a second page on that? I wonder if I might have. I haven't looked at this in a couple of weeks.
Can you scroll up to one and
Oh, I'm sorry.
So this was just meant to be an outline of it. First, you know, a review of the natural communities. Those are lifted from, I believe, Ethan's forestry plan. So it kind of syncs up with that. The double asterisks are those where VLT has got some special stuff where in the easement that we have to abide by. And then you scroll down, and now can you scroll a bit? That's it. And then we would have strategies there. Our goals. And those are there, but so monitoring isn't in there. So we will work on that. Good point.
So you've identified in the penultimate bullet the sustainable population. So that's really focusing on one species.
It is. Because, yeah, it's kind of the exception, but it is having a big impact on the forest.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Actually hunting seasons, agriculture, focusing on using the variety of shooting often.
Yeah.
Human practices to control the population in our environment.
Yep.
From regulations, years or take more goals. Can people now?
If you wanna.
oh, Julian.
I'll speak about deer hunting. The current regulations are more and more favoring antlerless seasons, mostly archery. Muzzleloader has a permit process, but a hunter can take 4 deer a year, only one of which can be a buck. So you can take 4 does in a year. I don't know where you use all the meat, but some people do and give it away. So the regulation's there. It's just a matter of getting people to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, Andrea made that point. The state is trying to find ways to, bring more people into hunting and with workshops and even, gender specific, women is hunter workshops. Andrea hunts herself. I know Sue Morris does.
But that can't be changed within the hours.
No, but we could, well, we talked about, I always remember in Huntington, they have coffee and donuts for hunters, at 4 a.m. The volunteers get up in hunting season and go to the parking areas and, have a welcoming thing. Could try to do something like that or leaflet even. But anyway, this is all rough right now too, but this is where we are. And we're gonna meet on, right now, we're talking about meeting on Monday. Daniel has invited us to a meeting and probably, dig into this some more, I think.
Brad, can I just ask a question about next steps for the plan?
Yeah,
Is the idea that then we would create a more detailed stewardship plan that would have some action items, some tasks? It would basically be a kind of like it wouldn't be the same as the forestry management plan that's in here, but it would be a longer document that sort of details that. Is that what you're thinking the sort of final product would be?
longer, I don't know how long it would be. I mean, longer than,
But do you know what I mean, though, like a written document that kind of outlines the
yeah,
strategies and things of the, okay, great.
that's what I'd say. Yeah, some specific.
Yeah,
It's something that you guys think, but I would think it would be embedded within the management plan at some point. Seems like if you went to the management plan, you'd expect to see this.
Yeah,
And I would guess there's redundancy. And so if this is currently, whenever we are adding, we just use this to replace whatever.
that's what I would hope. Instead of being a, free floating thing.
oh,
And same with trail, I think,
Yeah.
in
right.
education, if we ever did one. Yeah, all those things. I would
And then
put right in.
there may be kept as an appendix or something. for
Yeah.
reference, But are.
There could be a summary.
Yeah. Okay, great.
There could be some kind of summary in the main body of it and then a link to the back, where the details are.
That's great.
And the present format of this has under each major heading, there is management objectives and management.
Actions and tasks and yeah. Now, it might have, depending on what the format of the management plan is, it might have to be adjusted later, but I wouldn't worry about that right now. We can bend it into whatever shape we need. We'll just try to get some more content down, I think.
I can say thanks rather than to the people you've worked with.
Oh, no, that was good. It was fun. No, I think it was. enjoyable. Yeah.
Brad, could you identify for us and for the public online who was involved in that?
Chase and Sam Pratt.
Okay.
Sam was great. It's great ideas and then Andrea, short sleeve from the state helped. We haven't run this by her. I'd like to cross check back with her. I think we ought to, see what she thinks. John Cart gave us some great info right up off the bat, top of his head kind of stuff. So we've, had some good community involvement and expert involvement too, with John and Andrea.
And my only other ask would be, in this document, should you keep a record of who you consulted with, like Andrea Shirley, John Cart? Because in the management, plan, there's a great section and it lists by date, like so-and-so was contacted about this particular thing. That's great documentation to have. And if you house it here, when it gets incorporated into the management plan, we can then incorporate it into that section that talks about where we've had outreach and connected with community members and professionals. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Well, Brad, you have another document in the packet.
Oh, no.
From a meeting, and it was probably, did you want to?
Oh, that? Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll just bring that up. Right. In the packet, there's also sort of minutes from the subcommittee meeting. We were ahead of the game. Man, we knew, we've got openness is running through our veins. No, we thought it'd be helpful just to write that down for our own reference, mainly, my memory, geez. Oh, that's true, yeah, I'll pick up what he's talking about. Cool.
For the people online.
Oh, yeah, Celia, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Cecilia, for joining us.
The Zoom participants, I don't know if you heard that, but Cecilia's in the room now. Okay, I'm gonna surrender the microphone, I guess. Right? You're done with me. Okay, thanks, Phil.
So, I guess the question then would be, is there any other report that we should be addressing on the agenda? We move to, the only ones that are listed are the ones that Brad has just done.
Yeah.
D, which is, we've already done website update.
Yep.
We're doing okay.
Yes.
So we would be, we're calling on Brad again with a vision statement.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Brad has been working on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is like over the last couple of months. It's just taken a while to get to, find room on our agenda. We're so busy. Well, Lisa,
Hey, guys.
yeah,
Whoever's speaking, it's really hard to hear them. In fact, most of the people, except you, are pretty muffled. So if they're speaking too far away from the microphones that are around the table, that's what happens. So maybe just make sure they're looking at it or holding it or something.
And here, we've had a technical glitch here whereby we don't have the normal cameras and microphone arrays operating. So we're just depending on the laptop, that's how we've sent a laptop. And we're we're encouraging people to come and sit in front of that laptop. Brad was doing that just now. So I hope he was audible and will be in the next item, and others are invited to come and speak. Does that help?
were you able to hear that, Lisa?
Not really. I could tell it was Ian. That's about all I heard.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, yeah.
That one actually.
Out of the computer.
Yeah, sorry, Lisa, we have the chat open and Julian's taking notes and putting it in there. But
Oh, okay.
unfortunately, the microphone and video array in the building in the town center are not working, and we can't get in touch with Duncan. So we're relying just on a computer microphone.
Okay, well, if you've got notes, that's fine. Yeah, I just couldn't really hear what people were saying. That's okay. If it's registered in the notes, that's great.
So that raises the chat, which currently has 53 items, and I'm trying to ensure that these are just things that are going to Julian, but if anybody else puts something in the chat, maybe they can put down on those. I got it on.
Thanks, Julian.
Okay,
So, yeah, so we can move on now.
okay, okay. And here's my microphone. Can you get that up on the shared? It's what's the name of that one? Andrews. Oh, good deal. Okay. I don't want to have to read this for you. Just quick background. This pretty much sprang for a couple of us. I don't even remember who. Probably maybe 3 months ago, we're talking informally, maybe in violation of open meeting law. I don't think so. It was a pretty casual chat. But we realized that there really isn't anywhere. We've never really come to an agreement on what the vision for the forest is and what our mission is, in making that vision a reality. So borrowing heavily from existing documents. So, I mean, this is, you could say plagiarized, but put in, it's a lot more succinct than some of the documents, the town plan, the easement are probably the main ones. we put this together, or I probably put it together actually, so I can take the blame for this. So the idea is just that this is what it's all about, and this, will guide us. Maybe, hopefully, guide us in the updating process, to give us something we can fall back on that's easy to understand. That doesn't require paging through 40-page documents or whatever to, support what we're thinking of. It's sort of a philosophy of what we're about. So maybe take a minute to read it. So the Zoom people can read this, right? Yeah, it's on the screen. Good. Oh, yeah.
And it's also
It's in
on the
packet.
website as well, the agenda packet.
Yeah, it's in the-
People should be able to.
Yeah. So it's probably too much to digest tonight. I don't know what you think. Make this homework for next time, maybe. Well, and set how much time did? Yeah.
It's maybe allow 20 minutes for this.
Oh, okay.
Maybe, let's see if there are questions for you.
Yeah. Yeah, Melissa just spotted one coming in.
Yeah, Sam Wilson says, looks great, very thoughtful, may want to add the black bear each scene.
Black bear. Oh, okay. Mhm.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll come up there. Okay, hopefully everyone can hear me. So first I just want to express a lot of gratitude for Brad and other folks trying to distill what is a very complicated document and also kind of put together what I think is the keystone of any really good management plan, which is a clear vision that sort of sets out at the beginning some goals to guide the committee, but also so that the community can reflect on those and understand sort of the charge of the committee and the goals of the forest. Brad, I thought that the most impactful part of your mission statement, so I'm just going to move this so I can, yeah, I got it. Is the second sentence in the vision. In some ways, I thought that second sentence sort of said it all, which is basically the goal of the ACFC is centered around four things, which I think we could talk about the language, but I really think it's about sort of ecological conservation, it's about education, it's about recreation, and it's about forestry practices. And I think that for me, when I distilled the management plan, I kind of went through it while I was thinking about that. I thought, man, it would be really great to say like the goals of this forest are centered around those four things. Mm-hmm. And we've left out a lot, right? We haven't talked about economic development. There's many things that like could go into this, but what we're kind of saying, those are the four things that we see as the primary goals. And so I just, that was just my thought is like, I really like that sentence. And I'm going to be a stickler about some of the ecological language and being really precise about it. But I also thought that like, I think a lot of that is in here, and we can kind of dig into the details. But I really, when I read that second sentence, that resonated with me as like, I think even if it was just that, like that was our vision, I was like, that could be a good step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. I think lesson one is always we can boil it down and record everything.
Mhm. This is your-
Hi, so I want to thank Brad and whoever else contributed. This is awesome. I like breaking up between the vision and the mission. The one thing is uses the royal we, and I'm wondering in a couple places, and I'm wondering by we, do we mean the community of Richmond? Do we mean the Andrews Community Forest Committee? Do we mean the town of Richmond? Because we don't, this committee doesn't have the vision for the whole forest. I mean, we're serving the town and helping to sort of implement this vision. It'd be great to sort of roll out the vision and have that as part of our public conversation when we revise the plan. But I just want to hope some point we get in there a couple of places like together we strive to create and we will do various things. So if we think about that, that'd be great.
So, yes, I really appreciate that comment because I made a note myself that vision really needs to be identified as, is it the vision of this committee or what? I think it is. I mean, I think the way it's written is that it's a vision for what the committee will do. And then the same applies to the mission.
Sorry, I'm interrupting.
Well, no, I was just saying that I think actually that applies to both parts. You know, it needs defining, and I guess Cecilia raising a question: is this the vision for the forest or the vision for the committee?
Or is it
The community.
And then to make the vision more community vision,
Mhm.
and then the mission of the town is implemented through the first committee is X, Y, and Z in service.
I agree 100%. It should be the community's vision of the forest because the committee is going to change. But this will be integrated into the management plan, which will get a select board approval, which is a much bigger thing than any particular vision of any particular. I agree with that.
I like that. That's smart.
Lisa had a comment. Lisa said this, I love the model of responsible land and peace and vision. That's something.
You know, hearing you guys say less is more makes me wonder. Yeah, this makes me wonder if it would work to take off the last two sentences of the vision and just end it after and outdoor recreation.
Like it, it's poetic and beautiful.
Yeah, sure. I'm not attached. Just that was a wonder that came up. It seems like it says so much. It says all that in the top part, and then kind of repeats at the bottom. And
Well, one of the model things, maybe I should say it's in there, plays in two ways.
Theoretically, early on, we were modeling how we could have ecology and recreational use done in a balanced way together with our whole trail plan, which has a history since then. And the other thing is the state considers these town forests as a model of sustainable forestry. That's one reason why county foresters invest time in them, is to really show other landowners how they could be managing their forest as well. So there's a couple of ways. I think I like the model language, but we don't necessarily have to aspire to it. But I think that's something we have aspired to in the past.
What if it ended with, and I like the language too, of together we strive to create a model of responsible land management, period. You know, like that's what we're doing is.
yeah,
I like the cultural heritage, that could be reinforced between biodiversity and cultural heritage. And then if you turn to the bottom, I think that's been under the radar a little bit, but will grow in importance.
We could change the first sentence to, and the Andrews Community Forest will serve Richmond as a model of a thriving ecosystem.
How about as an important component of the thriving ecosystem? It's not really an ecosystem scale.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I also think we need to, this is where I'm gonna get into the precise language. We need to define what we mean by thriving, because that is very vague. What's that? I know, yes, but I also think that like, I think we'll find a balance between the big vision and like poetic language, and then like getting down into the detail. Like I also see environmental education, and I think, well, is it environmental education or is it just education? Because why not art? Why not music? What, like, there's all these things that could be part of it. It doesn't have to be, limited.
Mhm.
That's true, could be a story walk.
Could be education and culture.
Yeah.
Drum circle.
One circle. Woo.
So Marshall was introduced to the need for having a vision of the I'd say sort of working backwards from like concern about the management plans, lists of management objectives and management tasks. And what I was told was, well, if you're writing management plans, you have to build it from a vision statement. So, this is really crucial in terms of determining what goes into the management plan in terms of management. You start with vision and mission, and then you can go on to actually what you're going to do in terms of management.
I want to provide opportunity for us to discuss. And I'm also looking at the clock as well, knowing we have another.
Yeah.
We have 5 more minutes. So I just want to make sure in that 5 minutes, we also have a solid plan for next steps, so we don't lose our momentum here. So I'm happy to like open it up to the public too, if anyone has any comments, but also reserve a couple minutes for next steps so we can kind of keep this going and come to, I think, what will be a very strong vision statement and mission in the next couple of meetings as we kind of work through it.
Agent Avalon says, haven't read many management plans for my work, the vision paragraph is over.
Did somebody grab or somebody want to say that?
Yeah.
That is the other.
Oh, yeah, this is a great opportunity to hear from the public. So anyone out there have any comments themselves on this? You may have missed, Daniel is suggesting that we work on this over the course of the next couple of meetings and, try to hammer this out so it could actually appear in the management plan.
Great. Well, I don't see any comments. Actually, I'll speak into it.
Okay.
So, I'm open to any process that people would like to do in terms of moving this forward. One potential thing we could do is to let everyone make some notes on this. I think individually, if we want to like spend a little time with it, just think about wording. There might just be like changing a word here and there, moving some sentences around. But I think if everyone has a chance to sit with it, in the next meeting, we could also allot some time, maybe half an hour, and we could actually do some wordsmithing and playing around with it and see if we can get pretty close to a final product. And I think that would be a great step towards, sort of like our next management plan is being able to have this as part of it. Yeah.
It's where that is for improvement. Everybody's saying that they object to it. Is there anything in here that anybody finds objectionable for you? And I do not, I think it's really solid stuff. So I just want to make sure that we have a common baseline that this is nothing really objectionable as part of the. Anybody disagree with that?
Julian is noting that no one has found anything objectionable or raised any red flags in here. He's just checking to make sure that that's the case.
Yeah.
And it seems like people generally agree they're for this, and it just needs some tweaks. to make it perfect, but it is already very good.
Or we could just call it good right now.
Yeah, there's still some tweaking I think we want to do. Yeah. And I think we could get there maybe in by next meeting, we could do those tweaks.
It's close to good.
Yeah.
Is the plan that members of the committee and public also could print out this document and annotate it and bring it one way or the other to the next meeting? And would it also be okay if those comments are transmitted to Brad ahead of time?
Let's stick with the process that we've established for most of our meetings, which is the public will always be encouraged to provide any comments they want, and we welcome that as both per laws and part of our culture. So if folks do want to read this, if they have any suggestions, we encourage folks to bring that to the meeting, and we will definitely take those into consideration.
I would ask, if it was me, if it was Brad, I would want those comments to be just written into a printout from this document.
Well, I think that's up to Brad to decide, but
We could post the view, with mark it up, with a picture of it.
So I've been looking at some of the open meeting thing, and collective editing is one of their concerns, is that even if you make it public, it's still not the same as being noticed and warned and publicly available and accessible and everything like that. So
You can't.
So, but we are allowed to have one-way flow recognition. So if everybody wants to just send comments to one person without us trying to negotiate them or edit them together, we can do that. Can I read one more thing just to get to my real? Somebody already asked my question, because there are such things as officials we designated subcommittee. Should I get there? And so looking at the guidance from this, the group that you mentioned, and also from the state, there was a Q&A. It says, can there be a non-quorum working group that is not a subcommittee? I.e., can a non-quorum working group work on drafting a policy to present to the full body later without warning and posing minutes of a meeting? And it says it really depends on your definition of a working group. They said there's no case law interpreting where the line is in creating a subcommittee. If it's informal and less than a quorum is working between meetings, it's not likely going to be considered a subcommittee and trigger the law.
So can I
If it's
stop
just, let me
you for a
finish it.
minute?
If it's a subgroup that has been formally created, appointed, and designated with purpose and tasks by the public body, it is probably a subcommittee where the law does apply.
So when they're talking about the quorum there, they're talking about the quorum of the subcommittee.
Yeah, I'm saying whether it's even a subcommittee. So they're talking about a quorum. This question is a quorum of the full body. Can there be a working group that's below the quorum of the full body? And what this says is yes, if it's not formally designated. Anyway, that, or it suggests it is, it also says there's no case law on it.
Email me back.
Sure.
Yeah. So can I just respond to that, Cecilia?
Sure.
I hear what you're trying to say is there a way we can have some working groups without saying they're formally designated subcommittee? So let me just go back to an example. So if we say, oh, Brad and Julian, could you guys work on looking for all the spelling errors in the vision and mission statement before we come back to the next meeting? That's a task. Yes, you guys can do it. We say,
Remove a tree that's fallen down.
yeah, what do you really treat? Say, oh, and this could be any number of people, like to say, oh, Cecilia, Brad, and Julian, could you guys make our policy for dogs before the next meeting, and then we'll come back and vote on it. So that is an official task, and that is a healthy working on.
I respectfully disagree with
Okay.
an interpretation.
I'm just letting you know that I pose these specific questions, Cecilia, to the lawyers who are in charge of open meeting law and work for the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. So I suggest that you contact them.
I will. But when I hear you saying it to me, and the
Right.
question you had is, we have a subcommittee that X, and they're hearing the word subcommittee. So I think there are working groups, people doing things, so that's the whole reason we
Right.
have it. They even have a conversation about how you can edit documents jointly, as long as it's below the quorum of the full group. So I think the word subcommittee is the one we.
I would really suggest you join because, I listened to the whole presentation. I posed specific questions about our subcommittees and what they're doing. And I'm just reporting the answers back, what they do. They're the people who are the experts on this. So if you think differently, I suggest that you consult them before we proceed.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's exactly right. We need more consultation. This is what it comes down to is we need more information from the people who have the degrees.
I missed this, I watched it today and this is absolutely right. They're really hard to. It's gray, then it's, maybe they have.
If it's gray.
Hey, I'm gonna put a pause to this conversation because we're gonna get behind it. I want to make sure we move on to, we don't know how this is gonna pan out. So I think we can leave it at that. But our last item is coming up with a roadmap for the next steps in both our management plan, but also what we eventually bring to the select board for approval in terms of a revised management plan. And most of this credit goes to Nick and other folks in 2023 who wrote up a roadmap that was, I think as soon as Nick became chair, he kind of came up with this roadmap. And then it was clear that there's other things I needed to put in that roadmap. So for example, the meeting with the zoning administrator and the DRB, that was not part of the original roadmap, but it has to be in this new roadmap. So what I did is I created a new roadmap, but without any dates and without any times on it. And I wanted us to look at that and to start to think about what might be possible and what timeline. And part of this is because I think we're a committee who's enjoying each other's company and likes to discuss things and get things right. And we're also a committee who likes action and wants to move to some of the fun stuff, which is setting up education programs in the community forest and doing the monitoring and all the other things that we're tasked with. I think right now we're sort of like bogged down in the administrative stuff, but there is a lot of other parts of managing the forest that we're not doing by what we're doing now. And the stuff we're doing now is really important, but I think if we put some dates to this, then we might hold ourselves more accountable to kind of making progress, coming up with solutions and moving things ahead in a way that works for everyone and works for our community. So let's see here. Do you all, well, actually, I'll just ask, do you all have the roadmap up on your screens? I don't need to bring it up on this main screen. Cool. Yeah.
Take advantage of the pause to say, says that he recommends that a member of the committee volunteer to get edits on vision from everyone, compile them, and bring them to the next meeting.
I think we decided that, right?
Yes. Brad's the compiler. So if folks have, I mean, people can bring their ideas to the meeting, or you can send them to Brad before. Well, Ian's looking at that. Are you trying to bring that up? Well, this is the computer. I think it would have to be on this computer. I think you did. Oh, you got it, Julie? Thanks. So I think the way this could work is if people see things on here and they can put, if they're like, hey, like for example, the stewardship plan, if someone's like, hey, I think that could actually be like in pretty good shape by whatever it is, the June meeting or something like that. I think we can start just putting either dates to these, or if people want to edit this list or add other things, we can do that as well.
Step that I would should go with.
I'll just say you can repeat it. The stuff that I throw in around maybe after 5
Okay,
would be cross-check the conservation commission.
oh, yeah, and maybe, our, the Trails Committee as well.
Much stronger.
Yep. Okay, I added that one, I didn't add it to this document, I have a working document on my computer.
And so, my observation, if I could make another point, is, the draft RFP identifies a writer who will make the draft revised management plan. There'll be 2 cycles of, public review and committee review.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. So can you give me a where you would want it and what you would want it to say, Ian? Okay, and what? Okay.
Can I ask a question that I don't know the answer to, but if all of these edits are inspired by public input, how do we end the cycle of going back for public input on the subsequent edits? Do you know what I mean? Like, all these edits on the management plan are based on the public input meeting from last March. That's what created the trail stewardship plan. And that is select board input, but so I don't know. I mean, obviously people should provide public comment, but if people are not happy with the sum of the public input from the last public input gathering, then it's a never ending cycle.
But it's kind of a standard practice to give them at least one more. It's sort of like, did we get this right? This is what we heard. We have notes on what we heard. This is how we've integrated it. How does it look now? We want to have that conversation before it goes to the select board. We don't want to have that conversation.
Okay,
That's how I
yeah,
feel.
that makes
It's not
sense.
endless.
I guess I'm talking really loud because of the computer. So.
No, it's good.
Good. The thing that I worry about is that I probably sound like a broken record because I brought this up before, but the people that feel like they contributed feedback by coming to one of those meetings, but doesn't have the time or energy to get to subsequent meetings, how is their voice not watered down if they're not there to reinforce their?
I would answer that by saying that the request for proposals lists materials that the writer was going to be taken into account in rewriting and revising the management plan. And in that list is public comment about the process for getting public comment, the trials, and then the second one is the community report. So if those are materials that the writer is going to be working with, and that's the mechanism for that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
They definitely need those materials, but like I said before, we can't hand an undiffused bomb to the poor writer if we haven't solved our fundamental problems. I think this poor person is gonna be driven crazy and it's a bullseye to try to solve things that we haven't been able to solve together.
So, all right, so I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I'd like to offer up one way we might be able to do this, which is I would be willing to take a first crack at revising the management plan, integrating our vision, the trail stewardship plan, the wildlife stewardship plan, and the indigenous acknowledgement and associated materials, as well as organizing the management objectives and tasks into a more organized and succinct way that would allow us to see, what we're doing and what the tasks are. I wouldn't rewrite the language completely and change the content, but I would just reorganize and integrate and bring that to and use the RFP as sort of some guidance. I think there's a lot of good thinking in that, and I would consider that as part of like a document that could be integrated into the final product, which then I could bring back to the group and we could edit, go for public comment, that could go through the process. But I think the undiffused bomb that you're talking about, Julian, is part of this, the stewardship plans, the vision. I think we're kind of defusing it a little bit by incorporating those things because there's a lot of voices in that. And I think that my experience with writing management plans, reviewing management plans, I am a land manager and have been for a long time. I could just offer some organization to that document. And I could also pick out the little minds that have not been diffused yet within the document so that we could then address those specific parts. And once those have been addressed, they've been checked off, those other documents have been integrated, we should be sort of in agreement on bringing that document then to the select or to the next step in the process. So
That was amazing.
It is.
in mandarin oranges, yes. I'll take lots of clementines. Thank you.
I really say I think that's a generous, daring offer on your part that I certainly would be glad to accept. And I think maybe one of the things you could do is when you find those undiffused minds, bring them here. We'll discuss in a defined period of time, and then we vote on on how we want them to be in that management plan. And then we gotta live with it, the good ones, the bad ones, the ugly ones, the stinky ones, the pretty ones, they all go in there. And I mean, we have a process for a reason, and we have rules for a reason, and we have a higher threshold than any other committee as far as I know. And if we stick to that, then I think we're good. If you'd be willing to do that, and we'd all be willing to get into that, that'd be fantastic. Wow.
Let's go home.
No, but I don't know, it can't be illegal to hire you, right? Or do you?
I don't know, but it'd be interesting to look into that. I can do that while I also think about how long it will take me and all of that stuff. And
because the way I was imagining it, we were going to give the undifused bomb to the person who proposal, but that you would sit next to that person and go through them.
Right.
Picturing that happening, in which case you should be paid along with that person. You know what I mean? So maybe you don't have to put together. But I think we should consider that possibility. It would,
yeah. Well, we can look into that. That would be an interesting step. And then sort of to go back to the roadmap then, we can work our way backwards. So if we want to submit a revised management plan to the select board, I mean, this can just be a draft, but I'm curious what people think a reasonable timeline would be for that.
That's a new man. What do you think is the reason for that? You got the biggest list.
Yeah, but I do think we do all have a lift in this, in that. Yes. And I'm also thinking about like, for those who are more process oriented, thinking about, that like sharing out with the public and all, like how long those steps take. I mean, would it be reasonable to say we want to submit something to the select board by the fall of this year? You know, we could say October 2024. And I also want to really encourage people too. I just don't want people to get burned out because I really appreciate all the members in this committee. I think that like once we get this thing in motion, I think people can also go off and do other things for the forest that are not just administrative tasks. Like if someone wants to set up like a group walk, like a birding walk or something like that, like we can do that. I think we're kind of, I see us getting to this plateau where we're kind of like, okay, now this stuff is in motion and we can do some other thing. We can like take our brain off of this for a second. So I just wanted to throw that up there. So we can say submit to select board October 2024. And what I can do is maybe what we can do in the time we have is if I can assign some tasks here, which is Brad, as part of that wildlife stewardship plan, could you put kind of like a date on that of when you think you could have a kind of like a not a final, but like a more detailed plan?
Bring it back here.
Yeah, for me to use, to bring it back here and then for me to use and incorporate into the larger management plan.
Well, I would guess by next meeting, maybe, and speaking your
Okay.
schedule, Sam.
So I'm gonna say June, that we would have something that's sort of finalized. So we could bring at our May meeting, you could bring something back that's a more detailed plan. And then in the June meeting, we could be like, hey, this thing is like good to go. Maybe we vote on it. Okay, great.
But let me ask though, how do you see it fitting into the next week's working group / subcommittee subgroup?
Let me
Is that gonna-
let me think about that, and we can talk about that.
Okay. But that's only a week away. So.
Yeah, and we also have to figure out about subcommittees too. So we can think about that a little bit.
Number one seems like we could come to next meeting.
Oh
Not
yeah.
ready to be at the next meeting. Have to approve number one.
The trail stewardship plan. Okay.
And then Brad's got great momentum on number two.
Okay.
The monitoring question, maybe that we were to fill that in as we can figure out what's realistic.
Yeah. You can check back with.
That might be an ever evolving
Yeah.
thing. And it's gonna be trail monitoring.
Yeah.
It's more informed. But the habitat monitoring.
Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah.
We gotta be.
I mean, the plan could even be to develop the plan further. I mean, we would.
Yeah.
It like, we
Right.
could do a little gap analysis.
I think
This is
that's
what we
the
know
kind
we
of
can
thing
do,
that-
this is what we know.
Absolutely. That's the kind of thing I think we all imagined ourselves actually doing when we signed up for the committee, was out there doing some
Right.
habitat identification.
Pulling weeds.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I feel really good actually about if we are able to discuss the trail stewardship plan and we have a really good wildlife stewardship plan and we already have the great indigenous resources that Cecilia's provided, that's almost all I need to then start making those revisions. So I think the rest of these dates will fill themselves out as we go, and we're going to hit road bumps anyway. So I think as long as we have a goal of provide something to select board by the fall, then we can just like check the boxes as we go.
Yeah, and a reminder that when Caitlin met with Jay Furr and they came kind of, I guess Jay at that time was representing the select board's feeling on what they wanted. They came back and we decided that just coming up with a trail stewardship plan, the indigenous language, acknowledgement, and incorporating what Julian and Melissa and Ian worked on, the CMP edits, was all that we're gonna do. We're gonna go through and wordsmith the whole thing or reorganize it because and the select board wasn't expecting it. So that could be a task for another time, but we can move ahead on this schedule before then.
I'd like to interject that I had a little preview of Daniel's generous offer because we met a week ago to prepare the agenda as we normally do. And Daniel floated this idea of make this offer that he would like to get teeth into the management and make a start on it. And I just appreciate it because it's, really you could find 20 hours, 20 hours to do that.
I think it was a lot more than I mentioned. I think I mentioned a lot more hours. Maybe it was 200.
In what my comment at that point was, is this backing off from the idea of hiring a writer? Is Daniel offering to do what originally we thought was the task of writing? He said no. But so now I got this real appreciation for the value of Daniel making a swing through the materials that we have, because at this point we have so much material that potentially could be dumped on the table of a writer. Julian points out how a daunting task for would any writer actually take that on. So this is like streamlining the process. It's working into 2 steps, which I see as really positive move and something that as Daniel can really come through with that. Just though in that context, I'm not seeing in this timeline, I'm not seeing the writer being built into that.
Or Daniel helping.
Well, yeah, so I mean, honestly, like I already started to poke around in the management plan and move some things around. I think that my role is integrated into all this where I can do work. I don't have to wait on anything. There's so many tasks to do in that management plan that can be started right now. When I get the wildlife stewardship plan, then I'm going to integrate it. When I get feedback from the select board or Vermont Land Trust, I'm going to integrate it. I'm not going to wait on anything. And so I'm going to start right now by organizing the task lists into sort of like a more coherent and organized system. That's simple. That's just about organization. That has nothing to do with content. So Ian, to answer your first question, I think that I don't need to put a date up here. It's all integrated. I think in terms of your second question, would we ever want to hire a writer? I think, let's see. I think if I take a crack at it, I bring something to the committee and we think, okay, this is shit or whatever, like this is okay, but we really need a writer, we can go to that point. I think my idea when I really thought about hiring someone is like, we're going to spend a lot of hours hiring someone, getting the RFP out, getting them up to speed, working with them. And I was like, man, I'd rather just use that time on getting the thing done. So I think that we can later on, we can make that decision and we can integrate that into one of these numbers, and that, maybe we say, oh, we hire so-and-so to redo the formatting and make it look really nice. We're going to pay him $500 to maybe we do that. But I think we won't know right now until I have a first crack at it.
Maybe while you're taking that first crack, you or somebody will check into whether or not we can hire you to do that.
Yeah, we can check in and see.
I might have lost track. The trail stewardship plan, who's revising that? Or is it all done? Or is it that?
It was like the draft that Caitlin and I put together was based on those things. So I guess I'm interpreting that as that's a filter that they would be reviewed through.
But to me, what you guys put together was like a list of things that would have to be addressed in a stewardship plan. Mm-hmm. There were some specific rules about dogs on leash or not, but then there were other things. I wasn't quite sure whether the management. Anyway, I had specific comments on trails, and I just didn't know where to put them at this point. Do I send them to Chase? Do I give them to Daniel?
Yeah, I'm happy
to bring them to the next meeting.
I'm happy to gather initial evidence and collect those and bring suggestions And if you want, I can collect all those edits and then we can.
Suggestions.
Suggestions, yeah.
Yeah, there's just more ideas that might have to be integrated. Or discussed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You wanna email those to me and I will paste them into at the bottom of the draft.
Okay, I'll
And so-
email them to you and maybe CC you guys and share.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're moving.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, in particular, because the two subcommittees that were working last summer that Nick put in motion, there was some overlap between them. You know, there were items that were actually assigned to both subcommittees and also materials that got into the work of both those two subcommittees that overlapped and didn't necessarily agree. So, you know, the compiled reports of those two subcommittees that we saw last month that should identify what from what material from the comprehensive management plan should be used in resolving issues. So what material is material that makes work.
Okay, because I just wasn't sure where we were in the state of that. But we still have work to do as a group.
Well-
To Danielle, but.
Well, I think
Having maybe-
what I would like to do is Ian, can you send out that stewardship plan to the group and then we can look the trail stewardship plan, we can look at it and then the next meeting we can, and you can feel free to send Chase ideas.
And we can also
before
just
then.
talk about them.
Or we could just talk about them and then from there, just like we're doing with the wildlife stewardship plan, yeah, we can make a decision. Or the vision too. I mean, this is a great model, right? Like someone provides a draft, we all review it on our own, we provide comments, we talk about it, and then we move ahead.
And the thing I would like to send out is actually what got into the packet, I think, a month ago, which was that compilation of the reports from the two subcommittees organized.
Yes.
Where both addressing the same issues they appear together. That's all that would be. That's what I'd like to send.
Okay.
I had a question though.
Yeah.
The inclusion of the trail map. That premature, I mean, it's ahead of our management plan. Little cart before the horse issue. So I would just take that off for now and wait till we get, you know, everything's got to feed into once we start doing it.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point, Brad. And maybe we can use our meeting and talk about that a little bit. And I'm totally open to taking that off and we can just talk about like what would be the best way to do that. Cause I also think that when I don't know, I have a variety of thoughts on process that could look a little different, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, because I mean, when that's presented, you show why it's supported.
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
DLT and select board,
Yeah.
at least in the.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the iterative nature of it, where maybe we're like, this is where it is in draft form, this is where we're at now. And then it can change over time. So it's not like this is it set in stone. And so I'm thinking about that in terms of process and how iterative do we want to be and just like having, because I don't like this idea of not showing our current thinking on trails and then all of a sudden at the end being like, and here we go. I'd rather us be like, here's our thinking now, here's how it's evolved, and eventually we show, oh, and this is where we got to. And so I'd like that transparency.
Okay.
Well, maybe we
I
might.
just wonder, you know.
Yeah, we just have draft on it. We're like, this is our best thinking today. Yeah.
It puts building trails, you know, or doesn't it elevate it to a point where we're seeing everything through the lens of its impact on trails versus is it great for the forest? We figure out what's good for the forest and, you know, meeting all the other stuff.
Well, we'll look at both of them.
Yeah, let's put a pause on this and we'll do it next week.
But not when we start saying, you know, we're gonna have a trail.
Can I clarify something? What is the current, I know we have to go, but just to know where we are. What is the valid approved management plan today? Is it one or?
2018.
It's one.
Yep.
MP one is currently a meeting document until this body recommends it to the select board, and the select board adopts or rejects it, or whatever.
Mhm.
Okay. So today, MP one is the law of the.
Yeah.
There's a draft.
Right, right.
Yep.
But that is not voted. That was
No.
presented. We got all that feedback at Amazon.
Yep.
And then I've been working, and then trail stewardship planning came out of that, and CMP that you worked on came out of that.
Yep.
We're about to start the era of MPPs.
Well,
So we started late, but we're actually.
Yeah,
running
we're-
over time.
yeah.
Do you want to just clarify that? So,
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to know what the piece was.
Yeah. Julian was just asking about what is the currently officially sanctioned management plan, which is the first management plan. The 2018 management plan is the only one that's been voted on by the select board and approved. All other management plans are in the draft stage and have not gone to the select board for approval. Great. Well, thank you all for a good meeting, and thank you for putting up with the technology issues. Our next meeting will be.
Well, I've listed the next 4 meetings.
Okay.
But immediately the next one.
May 27th, June 24th, then we do have July 22nd and August 26th. So May 27th will be our next meeting. And
But that's Vermont 50 registration. That's 7 o'clock.
Vermont what?
May 27th is.
I'm joking. I'll drop.
What is it?
It's Ronnie and.
Oh, it is Memorial Day.
It's a really, it's a big community, but it's also 5 minutes, and registration is always 27.
It's also Memorial Day. Memorial Day. Okay.
Which is fine.
So it's Memorial Day.
Tuesday?
How do folks feel? Or I mean, on Tuesday,
May 28th.
the 28th. Okay. We could do the week before Monday, the
Thursday, Friday?
20th.
Yeah, there's a select board meeting that day, which means we can't use the space, but.
On the other one. The space doesn't work anyway. Would folks prefer the 20th? Keeping it to a Monday, but
We can do Thursday. I don't know if it's about keeping it close to the date or keeping.
Is there anyone that can't do one?
okay. Well, let's call it May 20th, and if we need to adjust, we can adjust.
And usually the same time.
Yeah. Is there any public comment before we end our meeting?
Dan Wilson did say, in chat, they agree with Brad. It seems the big picture work on vision statement should occur prior to the trail through detail.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
I just want to jump in and say, awesome job. You guys are doing, I thought it was a really good meeting, really productive, despite all the technology issues. So thank you for all your hard work. Also, Daniel, if you're into doing the revisions yourself, I think that you would be an excellent candidate. I mean, you obviously have a lot of context here and could save us a lot of time and trouble trying to get somebody up to speed. So, I mean, if we're allowed to do that, and if you're interested in doing that, I think that you would be an excellent candidate.
Thanks. Thanks for your comment, Sam.
Yep.
Okay. Well, can I get a motion to adjourn? All right, all in favor?
We don't need a roll call, it's your here.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.